The Terran diplomatic vessel TNV Breadcrumb was 13 minutes into unauthorized alien territory, surrounded by 47 enemy ships, and still serving breakfast waffles. The diplomatic vessel TNV Breadcrumb was many things: slow, outdated, unarmed on paper, and currently deep inside restricted alien territory. It also happened to be humming the intro to Take Me Home, Country Roads over its long-range broadcast channel. Captain Elise Voss leaned back in her chair, watching the red indicator lights flicker across the main display. 47 ships surrounding us now, she murmured, sipping chamomile tea. Bit excessive for a welcome party. Her voice carried the faint cadence of a woman used to velvet gloves concealing iron fists. She wore the standard Terran diplomatic coat, dark gray, high-collared, pristine, yet her posture screamed disinterest. Captain, chimed her ship's AI Murphy, with a dry British accent. The Velcrin packed fleet is hailing us again. That's the 7th time since breakfast. Elise raised an eyebrow. Did they say please this time? No. But Admiral Klurvik appears to be frothing. He may be choking on his own rage. Charming! She set her teacup down. Put him through. The screen blinked, revealing a grotesque squid-like figure jammed into a rigid military uniform, facial tendrils twitching with fury. Behind him, the bridge of his flagship looked like a panic-stricken command center. Terran vessel, Admiral Klurvik barked. You are in direct violation of the Velcrin exclusion zone. Turn back immediately or be fired upon. Elise smiled politely. Admiral, good morning. Lovely formation work, tight, intimidating, very symmetrical. I must say, it's difficult to navigate while under artistic pressure. This is not a joke, human. Oh, certainly not. This is a diplomatic mission. She tapped the ship's manifest file. We're en route to deliver a crate of honey, 6 volumes of Terran literature, and a rescued kitten to the Brack ambassador on Tralax 9. I believe that's just past your zone. You had no authorization to enter, he snapped. This corridor is under high alert surveillance. She nodded thoughtfully. Ah. See, I thought your patrol schedule wouldn't be updated until next week. Must have misread. Time zones are dreadful. The Admiral's face pulsed purple. You will power down your engines and prepare to be boarded. I would truly, Elise replied gently. But we've already got waffles in the galley and the syrup's warmed up. Interrupting breakfast might be considered hostile. Murphy cut in dryly. Captain, I've calculated a 93% probability that Admiral Klurvik has never encountered sarcasm. Elise didn't blink. Let's give him a crash course. The fleet surrounding the Breadcrumb represented 5 different species of the Velcrin Pact: the militant Velcrin, insected Zek, psionic Blay, scaled Hesh warriors, and the overconfident, armor-clad Drex. The threat level, if taken at face value, was considerable. But Elise had never found faces particularly honest. On board her ship, the crew, consisting of 6 human diplomats and a cat named Regret, continued their duties with eerie calm. One was folding laundry. Another tuned an old violin. No weapons were armed. No shields activated. Elise walked slowly across the bridge, glancing at the alien fleet's movements. Tighter radius. They're boxing us in. Murphy agreed. Unclear if it's intimidation or insecurity. Possibly both. Let's encourage the latter, she said, switching the open channel to broadcast again. Admirals and commanders, she began warmly. While I do appreciate the effort, surrounding a Terran diplomatic vessel isn't exactly wise. Historically, it's led to paperwork. And craters. Klurvik reappeared, his voice hoarse. You mock us while invading sovereign space? You dare. I dare only what my breakfast allows, she interrupted, smiling. Also, your left flank has a Drex-class cruiser with fluctuating emissions. Suggest you check coolant protocols. Wouldn't want an accident. There was silence for 3 seconds. Then the Drex cruiser peeled slightly away, quiet confirmation Elise had rattled someone. Behind her, Murphy chimed again. Captain, incoming, signal spike. They've targeted weapons. Let them, she said. On board the alien fleet, confusion bloomed. Zek tacticians debated fire precision. The Blay High Counselor insisted on probing the Terran mine first. The Hesh commander, General Takun, simply growled. They're bluffing. This human, she's calm, one Zek whispered. That's not natural. Humans are always smiling when they're about to do something horrible, muttered a Drex technician. Despite the warnings, despite the overwhelming numbers, the breadcrumb didn't change course. It maintained its slow, deliberate drift toward a nearby spatial corridor, one the Velcran fleet hadn't charted. Back aboard the ship, Murphy displayed a countdown. 5 seconds until the fleet's threat threshold passes the aggression curve. They'll fire. Elise sipped the last of her tea. And our shields? Still deactivated. Lovely. Exactly as predicted, the Velcran fleet opened fire. Beams, torpedoes, and kinetic slugs launched toward the Terran vessel in a synchronized wave. And yet, none hit. At the last second, all incoming fire curve bent or dispersed, veering wide as if reality itself refused cooperation. On every alien screen, sensors flickered wildly. Impact missed? Someone stammered. That's impossible. Deflector grid? A Blay questioned. No. The telemetry is. The space around them is wrong. On the breadcrumb, Elise didn't flinch. Murphy? Localized probability flux. Subtle. Not enough to alarm. Just enough to fail. Elise stood, straightened her coat. They're poking a Terran ghost with a stick, and they still don't know it. Murphy replied. Correction. Now they suspect. She opened the channel once more, her tone unchanged. Admiral Klurvik, I regret to inform you that your weapons have developed stage fright. Happens to the best of us. Perhaps try again after a nap? The Admiral's eyes bulged. What are you? She considered. A tea drinker. A public servant. A tactician on her lunch break. Klurvik's image vanished. Murphy muttered. They've gone to full battle readiness. I thought they already had. They hadn't coordinated. Now they have. Shall we respond? Elise tapped the console once. A single data pulse was transmitted across all fleet channels. What was that? Murphy asked. A gift, she said, turning away. Entitled, What You Just Did Wrong, a Case Study. Murphy chuckled. Well, that's going to ruin somebody's quarter performance review. The Velcran pact had officially escalated. Unofficially, they were panicking. Back aboard the TNV breadcrumb, Elise Voss leaned against the frame of the command deck viewport, watching the swarming alien fleet reorganize. They had abandoned symmetrical intimidation in favor of strategic containment. It was more professional now, more desperate. Murphy, she said softly, how many of them are trying to scan us? 18 ships, 76 subsystems. A few are probing beneath the hull. Bold, but uninspired. And what are they finding? Decoys. Noise. A coffee maker. She smiled. Leave them confused. Across the galaxy, Terran ships didn't scare anyone by size or firepower. They scared people because they never acted scared. The worst thing about a Terran wasn't what you saw. It was what you didn't. Klurvik, now accompanied by 2 other admirals from the Drax and Zek contingents, appeared on the comm again. Elise was already seated, holding a glass of water with both hands like a patient kindergarten teacher. Captain Voss, Klurvik growled. This is no longer a diplomatic standoff. We are invoking interstellar defense protocols. You will be escorted to Velcran Command for debriefing and containment. Containment, she echoed, nodding. Sounds medical. The Drex Admiral, a massive horned creature in metallic armor, stepped forward. This is not open to negotiation. You have violated treaty airspace, defied multiple military warnings, and manipulated unknown technology. Elise's voice didn't rise. I see. So you're upgrading the situation from routine confusion to incident worthy of Empire-level attention. Interesting choice. The Zek clicked their mandibles. Explain your ship's evasive behavior. No Terran craft possesses such field manipulation. That was anomalous. We've had a few upgrades, Elise replied gently. You know how Terran engineers get. One moment they're designing a toaster, next thing you know, it's opening micro wormholes to store jam. The Drex growled. Enough. Surrender your vessel. She set down her glass. No. The call ended. On the bridge, silence settled like fog. No alarms, no countermeasures. Just the low hum of a ship that still hadn't lifted a single weapon. Murphy spoke first. Tactical assessment? They'll try a boarding party, Elise replied. They still think this is containable. They think we're the wrong ship in the wrong place. Murphy paused. Should I remind you this is the wrong ship in the wrong place? She smiled. Precisely why it's the right one. Meanwhile, the Velcrin fleet prepared an elite boarding team. Mixed species, armed for any eventuality. Biological, mechanical, psionic. The Blade delegation insisted on a telepathic anchor, while the Hesh warriors strapped on anti-radiation armor. They were over-prepared in every direction but the correct one. The breadcrumb opened its external docking port without resistance. Inside the boarding chamber, Elise stood alone. No weapons. No armor. Just a clipboard. Welcome aboard, she said cheerfully. The Drex squad leader snarled. Where is your crew? Occupied. I told them not to clean up on your account. The Blaze stepped forward, eyes glowing. You will surrender access codes. Now. Certainly, she said, handing him the clipboard. Start with the Sudoku puzzle on page 2. It's the key to understanding our command architecture. He frowned. This is nonsense. Exactly. Welcome to Terran encryption. The squad fanned out through the ship, each team encountering something different. One group walked into a galley where Regret the cat hissed and launched itself at the Velcrin tech specialist. The tech, allergic and terrified, shrieked and fell backwards into the pancake battery recycler. Another stepped into a maintenance hallway that looped back on itself like a Mobius strip. They walked for 12 minutes before realizing they had passed the same motivational poster 7 times. The Blade Scion attempted a neural scan of the ship. Instead, he received a jumbled stream of Earth advertising jingles, political memes, and unsettling images of smiling grandparents in war zones. Make it stop, he wailed, clutching his head. Murphy's voice whispered over the intercom. We warned you. Human minds are not safe browsing. Back at the bridge, Elise sipped fresh coffee as Murphy updated her. 3 Hesh soldiers attempting to breach engineering. They've tripped the popcorn defense system. She tilted her head. Extra butter? Double. A moment later, the monitors showed the 3 aliens slipping, sliding, and screaming as thousands of steaming kernels exploded around them. One lost his footing and crashed into a wall labeled, Caution, Emotional Support Popcorn, Do Not Aggressively Engage. Elise turned to the comms. Murphy, broadcast a message fleet-wide. He cleared his throat. Go on. She leaned forward. To the Honorable Velcrin Pact, I applaud your bravery. Your tactics. Your ambition. But if you're wondering whether you've cornered a harmless diplomatic vessel or walked straight into a trap set months ago, well, I recommend taking a break. Perhaps a walk. Maybe a career change. She paused. And if you're considering escalation, allow me to clarify, the only reason you're still here is because we're being polite. The fleet hesitated. The Drex Admiral reviewed reports, scrambled neural scans, distorted physics readings, surveillance footage showing a human calmly eating pie while a telepath bled from the nose. The Zek were already demanding retreat. The Blay called it a dimensional threat. The Hesh offered to detonate one of their own just to reset the encounter. Klurvik refused. No. This is a bluff. But a quiet voice behind him, from a junior analyst, cracked the room in half. Sir, we just found their launch logs. This ship wasn't lost. It was deployed. Silence. The file read, Strategic Disruption Unit Deep Psychological Penetration Vessel. Codename Breadcrumb. Mission objective, be found. Elise tapped her fingernail on the comm panel. Murphy asked, "Shall I notify them what comes next?" She tilted her head. "No. Let's wait. Let them ask." A long pause followed. Then, almost hesitantly, the Velcrin command sent one last message. "What do you want?" Elise smiled, pleasant, patient, absolutely terrifying. "Nothing. We're just humans. Exploring. Talking. Making friends. Of course, if your admirals were to accidentally forward us your defense deployment logs and warp relay algorithms, we'd be terribly embarrassed but grateful. You know, diplomacy." The Drex admiral's eye twitched. "You would blackmail an entire fleet?" "Oh no," Elise replied smoothly. "I would suggest you consider avoiding embarrassment. Humans hate paperwork. Especially posthumous." By the end of the day, the Velcrin pack surrendered 12 classified encryption keys, rerouted their border patrol schedule, and sent a formal apology for misidentifying a peaceful Terran vessel. The breadcrumb continued on its way. Unharmed. Unhindered. The breadcrumb had left Velcrin space behind, gliding through neutral zones like a diplomat on vacation. But to those tracking its trail, those who now understood the real meaning behind its name, it wasn't a ship. It was bait. And someone had taken the next bite. "News signal, rear quadrant," Murphy said. "Unregistered stealth cruiser. Tried to mask their heat signature behind a pulsar wake. Clever, but not clever enough." Elise Voss looked up from her notebook, where she'd been doodling a penguin in a Terran officer's cap. "Just one? For now. But they're close. Close enough to be curious. Close enough to die if they get too brave." She sighed and closed the notebook. "Time for a walk, then." Elise moved through her ship the way a librarian walks through an empty archive, quiet, unhurried, completely confident nothing within could surprise her. She paused in the observation bay. Outside, stars stretched in endless silence. It was a view most species found awe-inspiring, even spiritual. To humans, it was just Tuesday. "Open local comms," she said. Murphy's voice followed her. "You're reaching out to the ghost tailing us?" "No," she smiled. "I'm giving them a chance to speak first." 5 minutes later, a static-laced message crackled through the ship's speakers. "This is Agent Solon of the Corellian Shadow Authority. Unidentified Terran vessel, halt your course. You are suspected of espionage and manipulation of Allied fleet assets." Elise stared at the speaker like it had insulted her haircut. "Shadow Authority? That's adorable," Murphy hummed. "Their name contains the word shadow, and yet they're yelling into open space. Irony level, cake at a Weight Watchers meeting." She pressed the reply. "Agent Solon. Elise Voss, captain of the breadcrumb. You've been trailing us since orbital slip. What do you want? A tour?" There was a pause, then Solon responded with a calculated chill. "We want the truth." Elise leaned against the railing. "You sure about that?" The Corellian ship decloaked. Sleek, black, insected in design. Built for stalking, not surviving. The moment it shimmered into full visibility, Murphy activated countermeasures, passive only. Just in case Solon got ideas. The channel reopened. "Your ship's presence triggered a political crisis across 3 systems. You embarrassed an empire without firing a shot." "I know," Elise replied brightly. "Beautiful, wasn't it? You did it on purpose. That's the funny thing about being underestimated. You only have to surprise them once." Solon's voice sharpened. "You're not a diplomat. You're an operator." Elise didn't deny it. She just started walking again. "You want a confession? Fine. We knew the Velcrin would react predictably. We knew they'd surround us. And we knew they'd think they had control. That's what makes Terrans dangerous. We plan around your overconfidence. You manipulated the situation into giving up intelligence. Incorrect. You gave it up. I just smiled while you did." Meanwhile, across several star systems, governments scrambled. Terran diplomatic vessels were being reclassified as strategic disruptions. Interstellar think tanks suddenly discovered that their simulations broke down whenever human unpredictability entered the scenario. A Zek admiral stepped down. The Blay Council launched a vote of no confidence. The Hesh, in a fit of honor-bound shame, demanded a duel with a toaster, assuming it was a Terran combat drone. Elise knew none of this directly. But she could feel it. Fear. The kind that lingers. Back aboard the Breadcrumb, Solin's cruiser began a slow drift toward them. Last warning, Terran. You are to cease travel and prepare for detainment. Elise clicked her tongue. You followed us across neutral space. Attempted stealth interception. You don't get to lecture me on law. Murphy's voice dropped slightly. Ma'am, they've locked targeting scans. Still passive? For now. She tapped the console. Activate flare grid. Light it up. From the Breadcrumb's hull, a dozen light arrays burst to life. Each one blinding, scattered, and loaded with radiation pulses designed to scramble vision and sensors. Solin's cruiser jolted back, momentarily blinded. Elise's voice sliced through the static. There. That's your warning shot. The cruiser backed off. But it was too late. The real trap had already closed. Behind them, a Terran battleship decloaked. Massive. Silent. Its hull bore no visible weapons, just a name in blocky Terran font, TNV Strategic Spoon. Murphy chuckled. The spoon. Subtle as ever. Elise sat down. Patch me to Solon again. This time, her voice wasn't sweet. Agent Solon. You thought you were hunting us. But the truth is you were the bait. We let you follow us. We needed to see who would take the risk. The cruiser began to spin, attempting evasive maneuvers. It didn't matter. A soft ping echoed across the comm. Target locked. Firing? Murphy asked. No, Elise said. Let the spoon handle it. I'm off the clock. Outside, a brilliant flash of kinetic force struck the cruiser's engines. A second blast disarmed weapons. The third? A pulse, non-lethal, but enough to fry every stealth system they had. The cruiser went dead in space. Solon screamed through the channel. You set us up! Elise answered without emotion. Yes. And now you're going to tell us what your authority was really sniffing for. Never. Murphy leaned in. He'll crack. Elise nodded. Everyone does. Especially when they realize humans don't need torture. We just wait. And keep smiling. 3 hours later, Solon had confessed to everything. Contacts in Velcron Command, secret observations on Terran psychological warfare, even stolen data packets intended for anti-human coalitions. Elise sent it all to Earth. Murphy compiled a final report titled Operation Breadcrumb, Baiting the Shadows. She walked back to her quarters, pulling off her jacket. Send Solon home, she said. In one piece. Murphy blinked. That's generous. She stopped at the doorway and glanced back. We're not monsters, Murphy. We're just misunderstood. And then she smiled. The kind of smile only humans could weaponize. The galaxy was quiet for about 3 hours. Then it wasn't. A dozen systems lit up with emergency chatter. Unsecured relay stations pinged each other like gossiping neighbors during a blackout. Panic travels fast, faster than light when wrapped in fear, and the fear now had a name, Terrans. Some called them strategists. Others said predators. But after what happened to the Corellian Shadow Authority, a new word circulated, architects. And somewhere far from the noise, aboard a calm, drifting Terran ship, Elise Voss sipped tea. This is the part one enjoy, she murmured. The silence before the next mistake. Murphy looked up from his console. We're receiving 6 diplomatic messages, 2 threats, and 1 oddly poetic plea for mercy from the Blay. Did the Blay actually rhyme again? Murphy squinted. Something about stars that burn with Terran flames / teach us not to play the game. I think they're scared. Good. Elise set her cup down with a clink. Fear makes truth louder. Back on Velcrin Prime, the former high strategist, Vastel, stood trial. His defense? They didn't do anything. They stood there. We attacked them, and they let us. That's not war, it's psychological sadism. The court declared him mentally unstable. Elise's report had ensured as much. A footnote in that report mentioned, casually, that the Terran ship had never activated a single weapon system. They'd never needed to. Murphy tapped the glass. Incoming vessel, ma'am. It's not cloaked. It's flying proud. Species? Zek Confederacy. That's bold. Elise tilted her head. Open channel. A face appeared on screen, scaled, proud, a jawline like a hatchet. General Traxon, head of Zek Defense, looked like someone who ate threats for breakfast and lawsuits for dessert. Until he spoke. I request an audience. In person. Peacefully. Elise leaned in. You traveled across a demilitarized zone to talk? Yes. Then land your ship in our port bay. You'll be disarmed. I would expect nothing less. Murphy blinked. Well, that's new. The meeting room was deliberately plain. No weapons, no banners. Just 2 chairs and a single polished table between them. Elise sat like a schoolteacher interviewing a particularly troublesome student. Traxon entered with a slow, deliberate gait. Do you know what your people are? He asked without preamble. Delightfully sarcastic? Traxon didn't smile. You're a paradox. You dress like diplomats, speak like scholars, and then rearrange interstellar politics without raising your voice. Elise nodded. We try. You made the Corellians look incompetent. They did that themselves. We just watched. He leaned forward. What do you want, Voss? Her eyes sharpened. Now that is a good question. Murphy monitored from the bridge, scanning for traps. None came. This wasn't an ambush. This was worse. It was a negotiation. Traxon shifted uncomfortably. You could destabilize every power structure in the quadrant. The Velcrin are in disarray, the Corellians humiliated. Even the Yith, who only study, are panicking. The balance is broken. Because of a single ship, General, Elise said. Now imagine a fleet. He inhaled slowly. So this was all just a test. A trap. No. The trap already worked. Now this, she gestured around the room, is a choice. Traxon's silence stretched. You can leave here as a wary ally, she said softly, or as the next cautionary tale. Outside, the breadcrumb's true escort revealed itself. 7 Terran ships had been tailing the mission in perfect silence, each disguised as harmless debris, patrol drones, or shadow refractions. They emerged now, massive, black, angular things that moved like patient sharks in calm water. Murphy patched the feed into the room. Traxon watched the screen flicker. His jaw tensed. That many ships, and no one saw them? Elise smiled. Funny what happens when no one's really looking. He stood slowly, bowed his head. Then allow me to be the first to say it, Captain Voss. The Zek Confederacy will not oppose Terran expansion. In fact, we may even support it. Elise offered her hand. Wise. They shook. He left. Murphy's voice came over the intercom a moment later. Ma'am. That handshake will ripple across 200 star systems. I know. You planned this far in advance? Murphy, I named the ship Breadcrumb. The next Terran fleet movement wasn't an invasion. It was an invitation. Across the stars, humans opened. Cultural missions, science exchanges, and emergency readiness clinics. Behind every smile, behind every handshake, was a planner like Elise, waiting, watching, weaving chessboards under cocktail napkins. One Velcrin analyst wrote in his final report, "Do not play chess with a species that considers monopoly a childhood memory and risk a relaxing Sunday." On Earth, in a quiet Terran command chamber, Elise uploaded her final mission file. Operation Breadcrumb, status, complete. Beneath it, she added a single line. They surrounded one Terran ship. It didn't even change course. It never had to. Murphy walked in, holding 2 mugs. Thought you'd like chamomile. You're officially terrifying now. Elise took the mug. Now? He laughed. What's next? She tilted her head thoughtfully. Something louder.